Hello, this is my last resort. I don't know what else to do. I I don't know who I can contact, but I need to get my story out there. So maybe I can find a little bit more help than I have. In October 2012, my granddaughters Nevaeh and Miley Jo were placed in my care by my daughter. CPS knew that I had them. My daughter went to jail. I took care of my granddaughters for 6 months in April. My daughter was being admitted into a rehab facility, and the CPS worker had told me I had to return my grandkids to their mother, even though I was told that my daughter was going to take the girls and run away with them. The CPS worker said I still had to return them, so I did. A week later, my daughter had ran away with my granddaughters. A week and a half had gone by, and my daughter contacted me to come get her and my granddaughters only if I could still care for my granddaughters. I was told by the CPS worker to bring my granddaughters into the police station where the CPS worker's office was, and so I did. When I got there, the CPS worker was starting to take them from me, so I asked her why I wouldn't be able to care for them anymore. She said because of my background, which I had no criminal past, but I had an accusation on me because I was in an abusive relationship and fought to have all those allegations took off of my CPS record. So I had called my stepdad, and he met me at the police station where the CPS worker said that the girls could be placed into my mother and stepdad's care. A few days later, my daughter, my mother, me, my stepdad, CPS staff had a meeting, and a temporary plan was put into place that said my parents would care for my granddaughters until I had got my file taken care of, which was taken care of, and then another meeting between me and the caseworker was set. I went to the CPS office, and the CPS worker said that because even though it was an unfounded allegation in my file, I could not even have unsupervised visits with my granddaughter. I asked why, and the caseworker told me that I needed to focus on my own children instead of someone else's children. So I didn't take that. I didn't think that there was anything else I could do, so I followed the rules. My parents started the adoption process for my granddaughters. My daughter signed what she believed was an open adoption papers for my parents to adopt the girls, not anybody else. The adoption lady went into my parents' house and was very rude to my parents, making every excuse in the book why my parents might not be able to adopt Nevaeh and Miley Jo. Even there, they had already adopted my brother's children, even though they already adopted my brother's children a few years back. The adoption lady, sorry, the adoption lady went to my parents' house. The adoption lady told them that they have to do a home study, which is one of the process of adopting. My parents knew that they needed to have that done. At the end of the case study, the adoption lady was closing the case, and at the last day when it was supposed to close, she sent CPS to my parents' house with allegations that the children, my grandchildren, were not being taken care of properly. And there were other reports made from the adoption agency which were false allegations. They were all unfounded. There was a court date set because the adoption agency wanted to remove my grandchildren from the home. The judge said that they would have to return in a month or two. And if he thought that there would be a transition made for the grandchildren to be placed into another home, my parents would have to make that possible. My parents agreed to that. The adoption lady called at 8 o'clock that night. And my mother answered the phone. The adoption lady asked my mother if they were ready to start the transition with my granddaughters. And my mom said no and hung up. Because she was very upset. The lady was very, very rude to her. So the adoption lady called back. The adoption lady called back and talked to my stepdad and asked him the same thing. What she asked of my mother. He said no, not till the judge says that we have to. The adoption lady told my stepdad that if they would they would have to start helping the week she was going to come and get Nevaeh and Miley Joe. My dad said no. The next day, Tri-Cities CPS and the adoption lady went to Nevaeh and Miley Joe's school and removed them when my parents went to the school. They were nowhere to be found. My mother went in hysterics and went to the office, and the principal told them that they had CPS and the adoption lady picked them up earlier that day. That evening, my mother got a phone call from the adoption lady, and she said that she had already had a couple that was going to adopt the girls, and since my parents weren't going to help with the transition, there was no one in our family will ever see the girls again. It was mentioned that the adoption lady had made the decision not to allow my parents to adopt from the beginning when she told the CPS worker in Walla Walla that they can go through the process, but the girls already have a family in the process of the home visit that is going to adopt them instead. The adoption lady had threatened to take all of the children from the home if they went to a lawyer. The next day, me and my mother went and seen a lawyer in Tri-Cities. He took our case.